In episode 9 of Brent's Breakdown, I introduced the critically important role of customer confidence in driving large scale B2B deals. And part of the kicker of that particular episode and this idea of customer confidence is that at the end of the day, it's not so much customers' confidence in us, the supplier, our brand, our product, our features, our benefits, our people as trusted advisors that really matters nearly so much as customers' confidence in themselves and their ability, particularly as a group, to reach consensus and make large scale decisions on behalf of their company. And particularly in the environment that we are all operating in today of deep economic uncertainty, political turmoil, you name it, it's not surprising that customer confidence is perhaps at a relatively low point. There's a great deal of risk aversion, and we need to find ways, in fact, to make customers more confident in making large-scale decisions on behalf of their company. And if there's one set of tools, one toolkit that we all turn to in helping customers feel more confident, it is the toolkit of customer value. And we hear this all over the place right now, and whether it's in customer success as a function, whether it's in keynote presentations, whether it's on social media. I just read a comment just yesterday that said essentially it all comes down to our ability to sell value to our customers. So let's talk about this. So what is the value selling toolkit, right? I think in many ways there's a certain number of tools in the value selling toolkit. It would be things like customer testimonials and industry benchmarks and NPS scores or user surveys or adoption rates, particularly for existing customers. Look at all the value that you've gotten from us already. And all of that, the centerpiece of this entire conversation centers around one thing, the value calculator. Because if we could put together a calculator, some sort of calculation that calculates step by step all the ways in which our customer gets value from our solution or could get value from our solution, then that's going to make them, the argument goes, that's going to make them more confident in this decision that they're making on behalf of their company. Look at all this return. Of course I'm going to make this decision. But here's what often happens in reality. And let's see if you run into this too, because it's maddeningly frustrating. So you lay out all of this evidence of your value, right? So the customer testimonials, the benchmarks, the adoption rates, the ROI calculation, and your customer looks at it and says, yes, I totally agree. And you get all excited because they're looking you in the eye and saying, I see all the value. But then there's the next word, which is but, and this is the yes, but problem. Yes, but I don't know if I can show this to my CFO because the metrics are a little off, or I'm not sure if I really believe in this data because it doesn't come from our database, or yes, this is really important and I see what you're saying here, but this has become more of a nice to have in our list of priorities that we've got to get done this year. One way or another, it's kind of deflating, isn't it, right? You've built this ironclad case of value for your customers and they look at it and kind of go, And that is so deeply frustrating. So you think, well, now what do I do? I've got to convince them of the value. I've got to make them confident. So let's double down. Let's show them even more data, even more testimonials. Let's get an even happier customer, a raving fan to talk about how great we are. Let's get even more benchmarks from this third party who can show with objectivity how important it is to buy our solution or a solution like ours. And yet it all kind of lands sort of with a thud with your customers. And you think, well, what happened? Well, here's what's interesting, because here's what happens. Notice all of these efforts to build this business case for you. Notice, what are you ultimately solving for? Yes, you're solving for confidence, but you're not solving for customers' confidence in themselves nearly so much as customers' confidence in you. Look at us. Look at how great we are. I'm going to sell you the value of my solution. But if you really root cause that uncertainty inside your customer's business, I think you'll find that the problem isn't so much that the value is unclear as that they're unclear on what they're even trying to do in the first place. And in fact, if we were to root cause this phenomenon, we'd find that there's not a lower order challenge here that we need to solve for, but in fact, a higher order challenge. Before we talk about all the value that we're putting on the table, we need to make sure that that buying group is even aligned on what they're trying to do in the first place. What are the outcomes, the 2 or 3 outcomes as a business at the strategic level that they're seeking to accomplish? What are the tactics that they collectively agree are the right tactics for pursuing that particular outcome? Do they have clarity around the metrics that they think are most important for measuring those particular tactics? And have they set specific targets and timelines for the achievement of performance against those metrics? So outcomes, tactics, metrics, targets, timelines. And if the customer group, the buying group, isn't not just aligned, but confident in those 5 dimensions, then the value that comes out of those 5 dimensions is always going to be suspect. And the degree to which we double down and say, no, we need an even better ROI calculator with even more evidence, but we haven't solved for those 5 dimensions first, then we're always going to wind up in this trap of yes, but. So as we think about selling value, as we think about demonstrating our value, let's stop for a moment and first ask the harder, frankly, and the higher level question: to what degree do customers feel confident in what they're even trying to do in the first place? What are their outcomes? What are their tactics? What are their metrics? What are their targets? What are their timelines? And let's help them feel confident about those things. If you want to add true value to your customer, engage them in that conversation. Help them understand maybe what they're not seeing. Give them ideas and perspectives and input and information. And that's where the benchmarks could go and the insights from other organizations and from your own expertise to help them figure out, what are we even trying to do as a company? And if you get alignment on those 5 things, then when the output, which is no longer, with the value I should say, which is no longer now an input to that conversation, but an output of that conversation, now it becomes believable, because now that value has context, and that context is the customer context. So as we think about selling on value, let's think perhaps about how we collaboratively build a path to that value inside the customer's organization, inside their perspective first. And that, I think, will completely change the value conversation.